Everyone, I'd like to welcome everybody to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission for Tuesday, February 27th. I'm going to open the meeting at 7:30. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Fenton? Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones? Mr. Kucera?
Here.
Mr. McHale?
Here.
Ms. Prowse?
Here.
Ms. Scripture?
Here.
Mr. Shepard?
Here.
Mr. Watson?
Here.
Agenda item number 4. Can I get a motion to approve the regular minute meetings from February 13th?
I'll make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes from Planning Commission of February 13th, 2018.
Support?
Any changes, corrections, deletions? Nothing? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jacobson? Yes. Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prowse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepard?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Agenda item number 5 is a request for a temporary certificate of occupancy for 110 South Main Street, which is the Traffic Digital Agency.
Well, you'll recall that this is a new use, essentially an office use in the end cap of the center that is, well, this end would be at Jefferson and Main. They've finished or are in very close to finishing their interior work, but their site work remains to be completed. They do not feel that they can complete it at this time due to weather. So they've, your packets was their estimate of the work remaining. We don't have any backup for those estimated costs. They are acting as their own general contractor, so their principal is here tonight to discuss that with you. But what they're requesting is a temporary CO until spring, and so that they can have time to complete that work when the weather permits. You'll recall that when other such requests have come before us this winter, we've generally been extending the time for those to May 31st. So I would suggest that that's appropriate time frame. I think you have to discuss with them the amount of the bond, and then their insurance agent or insurance person, I don't know if agent's the right word, has been in communication with the city attorney about the form of the bond that they would use. And so once we have the information to fill in the blanks, then they'll be able to complete that and potentially get in there once the construction code issues inside are resolved. If there are any remaining, again, you're authorizing the building official to issue a temporary CO when he's satisfied with the construction that is under his jurisdiction. So with that, I'll...
No determination has been made on the bond amount at this point.
No, that's what you're called upon to do tonight. So he's suggested a number to you. He's going to come up and explain how he arrived at that number, and you'll have to decide whether you're comfortable with that number or not.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Jeremy from Traffic. I'm the president of Traffic. I've seen you all before when I came through here. And, we moved pretty swiftly on this build. We're actually very proud of the improvements that we've made so far to the property. If you haven't had a chance to drive by there yet, we've put in some nice roll-up windows, as we call them. But we're very excited to get in. Our current landlord in Troy knows that we're vacating and has made our lives very hard because of that fact. So we're excited to really get our business going in Clawson. So we actually are the company that has been overseeing the build as well. And these estimates that we prepared are from a time and materials estimate. So the difference between us and having a contractor submit a bid on this is we pay the direct labor through 1099s. directly, right? So we sat down with our labor team and came up with the estimates. And you'll notice that the items on the list are exterior improvements, right, on the outside of the building to complete the space per the site plan. We have parking lot striping to the approved prints, concrete ramps, which allow us to go from the roll-up doors themselves, roll-up windows themselves, down to the current sidewalks. A bike rack as well, which would be built into the ground. The new trees on Jefferson Avenue as well. Some paint detail work on the exterior, just obviously waiting until the temperatures come up because that exterior paint's really no good below 50 degrees. And a sign as well. We're going to be putting our sign up, when the fabrication of it is complete and that's ready to go. And then we also have a knee wall as well per the approved prints. So we've estimated between time and materials a total cost here. Let's see, that's 18,000 plus 19,1. Yep. 20,200. Thank you.
I concur.
So, yeah, so that's kind of a summary of what we're doing. We're, we had Jim at our site today approved of the building rough, and we've already passed the plumbing and electrical inspections. We're working diligently around the clock to try to be as close as we can by next week. Our employees are really excited to get in the space, and I think with the issue that we have with our current space in Troy, we're very excited to get our business up and running. So it's going to be a nice change of pace for us. That's what attracted us to Clawson in the first place, is that downtown environment. And the employees ask me every day, when are we moving? When are we moving? So I've been answering that question about 1,000 times in the last 4 months. So excited to get in there and operate.
What exactly does Traffic Digital Agency do?
We are an Inc. 500 company. We actually are going to make the Inc. 5000 for the third year in a row this year. We're a digital marketing agency. So we provide digital marketing services for mostly Fortune 1000 companies. Our biggest clients are Steelcase and Grand Rapids. Okay. We're big clients. One of our big clients is Federal Mogul out of Southfield. Notably, we design award-winning websites and do a lot of digital marketing for I would say kind of small, mid-size, and large businesses. So,
and how many employees do you
have? So spread out throughout the U.S., we have about 40.
Okay,
some of our employees work remotely.
Out of Clawson, how many do you have here?
We have 20 here.
20 here?
Yep. So.
Okay. That sounds good. I'm surprised that a bicycle rack costs $1,500.
Yeah, it's the ones we saw online that we like the design of. So, yeah, I mean, it's we're trying to keep our kind of aesthetic to a certain standard. So, yeah, this was just kind of what we looked at in terms of materials. We sat down and kind of went through it and just came up with estimates for what we thought, how much labor we'd have into it. And again, because we're providing the labor ourselves, we're just paying hourly, so it's a little bit different than if a contractor came in and marked up a bid and things like that. So. We've been putting in a lot of sweat equity and time between our team members working on it.
Good. Any questions?
So I see $800 for a sign. Could you elaborate as far as the sign, what that?
Yeah, we actually, believe it or not, we saved our old sign from Royal Oak that
Okay.
we weren't able to use in Troy. So we're actually modifying that sign because we actually just rebranded a bit. So we changed a little bit of the look and feel of our logo. So that's going to be it's being refabricated to the new standards that we have. So we originally had a sign shop in Royal Oak do it for the installation in Royal Oak about 5 years ago, and it's being reworked now for that use.
Describe the knee wall, and it may have been on your plans, and I apologize that it may not look too close. Where exactly is that going to be in?
Yeah, so this is something I wasn't as educated on when I first came in here for site plan approval. But the knee wall runs adjacent to the parking area. I've been in conversations with the owner of the building, the landlord, and their architect. It's kind of weird because the plaza directly to the south, which is conjoined to the fitness center that's next door to ours, went through a recent renovation and they don't have a knee wall. So it's going to look very disconnected, but the knee wall, creates that, I think it's part of your downtown design standards that separates the parking area from the adjacent kind of right-of-way.
Is the knee wall on Main Street or on Jefferson?
Well, on the prints, it's on both, right?
Oh, on
So,
both.
because there's a parking space in the back and in the front, it would have to block in those areas.
The knee wall itself is along Jefferson. The one on South Main is a wrought iron fence with piers that match the knee wall.
Got it.
It's along with it, with a lot of shrubs are now? Or?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Oh, that sounds like it would look good.
Any further questions?
No, I don't. No, I just, I'm glad to see as far as the sign, that they were able to modify it, I guess, or
Recycle it?
recycle it. Not recycle it, but.
Yeah, it's kind of
Repurpose
recycling.
it.
Thank you, exactly.
I did have one question just about the estimate. I guess maybe a question for Jim. Knowing that this is sort of budgeted a little differently than we would normally see a GC budget for, are we thinking that if we did a bond or some sort of something like a bond, would we want to increase that a little bit? Like, is there a certain percentage? Do we think maybe 25,000 is an appropriate amount, or do you feel comfortable with this number?
I personally would increase it because if the bond is actually supposed to be, we would use it to complete it if he failed to complete it.
Right, if we did it.
And it would cost us extra because we would hire contractors to do
Right.
it.
So based on sort of other work being done in the area, I'm thinking more around 25,000. Does that seem like an appropriate, or you think even higher than that?
It's a decent round number.
Would you be amicable to that?
Yeah, and one thing I did want to notice, or just mention too, that I've conveyed to the building owner. So, just to frame this, right, we're leasing a space within a larger plaza, right? And actually on the approved site plan, there's areas being improved that aren't even directly adjacent to our suite that we're leasing. So I'm actually working with the building owner to, she's very nice, and have her commit to doing these exterior improvements. Just for expediency, I don't mind pulling the bond in my company's name just to get it done because we're in the mode where we want to get open. So, she'll probably be the one that's having the work done. If the bond, probably be in my name or my company's name or her company's name. Her company is Clawson Rental Property LLC, but I think 25,000 sounds fair. I think from our end, we're just, very excited to get to the finish line.
So even though that looks like it's all one unit, that whole block there, this is a separate unit.
Yeah, we're
separate
just on the corner, but
Yeah.
the site itself is the fitness center and the adjacent business next to us. So because those standards changed prior to going for site plan approval, technically the site includes consideration for the fitness center next door. So it's almost like subject to our approval, we have to do more work than just what surrounds our lease space. Because our lease space is about 1/2 of her ownership, and then you have 3 other businesses, I think, further south within that same structure.
Okay.
So it's a little bit odd, right? But
So if you're asking for the TCO, what is your estimated move-in date?
what we'd love to do, so we've passed all of our rough inspections, and I'm trying to hold my team accountable to being done by about a week from today, to the interior list that we have, to get all the the finals scheduled. So
Okay.
we would have 4 final inspections, but we want to get in fast. So we're talking very quickly, actually. Pedal to the metal, so to speak.
Okay. Motion?
So you're saying that you want to be in by no later than March 15th, is it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So as far as satisfaction being met from your perspective?
The building itself, he can wrap that interior of the building up in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So if he gets the bond straightened out, potentially he could be open in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That was the game plan we talked about earlier today.
Okay. And so as far as the method for the bond, what do we need to consider?
You just need to set the amount, and then it'll be in a form acceptable to the city attorney.
Okay.
So set the date, you know, when it will expire, when the TCO would expire. So the done by date and the amount of the bond.
Okay, so we're talking, we want to have everything completed by May 31st, right? That's, in your timetable, as far as everything being completed, that's,
Yeah, I mean, I would say with a high degree of confidence, I mean, the only item that I'd say might need an additional month might be this knee wall, because it's the biggest item on this list,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to coordinate it with the property owner, because it's an improvement to her complex that in a traditional scenario, when we're just leasing a four-walled space, we wouldn't, you know, be doing that as a tenant.
yeah.
So she's been pretty receptive to my conversations with her about it. I think she was in the city here a couple days ago, and was asking for some references on that. So
Okay.
I would say maybe on the knee wall, if we could maybe add another 30 days to it, that might be good. I think all the other items easy to do by May 30th.
Can we do that? Is
Yeah,
that-
you can set a separate date for the knee wall.
You want to give them like a 60-day temporary?
So I think as long as we say everything else is completed, with the exception of the knee wall, will be granted until June 30th,
May 31st and then June 30th.
I think, unless we can't divvy it up that way.
No, you
Yeah, he
can.
just
No,
said we
Greg
can.
said.
Okay, all right. So, and then as far as the bond, so,
25,000.
okay, are you,
Yeah, just the only question that we had is just to do our homework. I had my insurance agent contact the city, and he's looking for a bond form, apparently, because there's thousands of types of surety bonds. So I'm trying to understand what that would actually, if we can just get some direction on that. We'll get the bond to your specifications, no problem.
Mr. Kenseth?
I do, yes. I wish I had the sagacity of Solomon, but I'm a lawyer, so that addresses that. I don't. The issue on the bond, it's hard to determine it's easy to determine the terms. It's difficult getting them. The experience we've had before is either the owner or the developer puts up the money, and it's on deposit with the city of Clawson, with an agreement that provides for when it's going to be released. Sometimes it can be released in stages as things are done, or it can be released at the end. It's negotiated. Others are a surety bond that's issued by an insurance company. Others are performance bonds issued by insurance companies. That's on the owner to try to get that, not the city.
okay,
I've done performance bonds with insurance companies, and they sent me their form, I've modified it, they've accepted it. And it's signed and that's done. So that's where we are. So, I mean, I'm amenable to working with them, but they have to develop the solution on how the financing is gonna be handled. I can do the terms, so if you determine the amount of the bond, I would request that you leave it to the owner and the city attorney to work out the means of the terms,
Right.
as well as the form of the bond, so long as that is done to meet the requirements that you have tonight. So I think it needs some flexibility.
Right, so you have your people get together with our people, and then,
Yeah, that's what they say in Wall Street.
right,
So then we just need to come up with a dollar amount.
we just
okay.
come up with the amount and the length of time of the temporary certificate.
Yeah, okay. All right, try to get through this. Okay, so I'll make a motion.
Can I just ask one question
sure,
too, just
sure.
for clarification? So the owner seems pretty receptive to being able to do kind of the exterior work that's needed for the site plan as a whole for the plaza. Does this approval, is it contingent only on Traffic Digital Agency, Inc.? Let's say that she issues the bond for the same amount that you approved tonight in Clawson Rental Property LLC. Would that be any different? I'm just asking that technical
We'll
question.
have to ask our attorney that one.
It's more
Well, hey,
technical.
if that's gonna happen, Kingsup is going to try to hang her and tie bar her as much as you are. So that's the way the game's gonna be played.
So what is the arrangement? Do you have,
Well, no, so I've talked to the building owner about this, right?
Okay.
The fact that the site plan requires these improvements.
Yeah.
Okay. And as recently as yesterday, she's asked me if I can recommend a contractor to do the knee wall, right? So that is, she would be paying for the work to do the knee wall because it's for her plaza. It's not really for our space. So she's the one performing, quote unquote, the financing of the exterior improvements, even though these other items, those are us. But the knee wall specifically.
That's their improvement, okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying is if the bond is, I'd assume the city's fine as long as there's a $25,000 bond for this work. I wanted to clarify that just in case she says, yeah, I'll put the bond up and we'll make sure the work gets done.
Right. Do we care who's issuing the bond?
It does to an extent. I mean, it's a cash bond, yeah, we want to be sure all the cash is there and it's in our accounts. But a third party who's not here and hasn't heard the dialogue, and, you know, I'm looking at it from standpoint of timeliness, responsiveness, completion of the contracts that are necessary for the construction, and time frame for the construction. Now, that's not Jeremy's concern, but it is ours.
Right.
Because it's part of the site plan approval. So those are things that come in that might, you know, create a wrinkle. Now, if you say you're flexible, me, to work with him and her on whatever arrangements can be made, then I would feel protected, in a sense.
Okay, so should that be part of the structure of what we're laying out, that the three of you with the property owner come to an agreement by a certain date? Or?
Well, we would need to have the bond done to get the temporary CFO. So
Yeah, you can't
it's going to
without
work
it.
itself out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So it's self-policing in terms of the
Yeah.
date, right?
Okay.
He doesn't get the
that's-
TCO
But I just
until
want to
it's
make sure
done.
that as far as if she has, you know, some misgivings that, and it comes up later, that,
No, I think you could put in those words I say all the time, to the extent practicable. We'll work with the owner of the property as well as the
Yeah.
tenant to get everything done as you've ordained it.
Yeah, like I said, if she can't produce the bond fast enough, we're going to produce it because we have to get in the
Right.
space. You know, so
yeah, sure, okay, that's what I, okay, so, okay.
So Jim will not
If you're
issue the
satisfied with that.
certificate.
Yeah, I mean, is it one way or another,
Because
right?
like you
'Cause-
said,
Yeah.
if she's not going to be producing it, he's going to produce it because they want to get in the building. So I think I'm fine
Okay.
with that. I feel comfortable
Yeah.
with that.
Okay,
Right. So we'll get, you know, probably in a conversation over the next 10 days to figure out what the solution will be.
Okay.
And whatever it is, I'll report back to you.
okay,
So you have
Thanks,
that
Jim.
information.
Very good.
okay, all right.
thank you for the clarification. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we grant temporary certificate of occupancy, subject to a final inspection by the city of Clawson, that all items that need to be completed be done by May 31st, with the exception of the knee wall, which will be extended another 30 days until June 30th of 2018. That this all be backed by a $25,000 bond on deposit with the city, where the applicant and the city attorney will work out the details and the terms of the bond. Anything?
You want to put a time limit on the the certificate? You want to give them 30 days, 60 days?
He did. He said May
30th.
30th.
May 31st.
And then
Oh.
June 30th.
And then he gave June 30th for
And we
the
did-
knee wall.
Okay.
We did want the first, or the end of June on the knee wall.
Yes.
Just like they specified.
June, okay.
We do want to state the company in there too, though, granting,
I'm sorry, yes, at
Traffic
110
digital.
South Main Street Traffic
Yeah.
Digital Agency. Good catch.
we can work on this. We're together, we're in this together. I support that.
I got a motion, I got support. Anybody else? Comments, changes, anything? Nothing? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prowse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Welcome to Clawson.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome, thank
Be in
you.
business shortly.
Item agenda number 6 is public discussions, items not on the agenda. Anyone from the public wishing to say anything? Seeing none, I'll close public discussion, and we move on to other business. 7.1. Code enforcement correspondence.
I think I CC'd all of you, email and hard copy. I think I'm going to do all my correspondence that way with this board. It's the only way to make sure I get to everybody. So, responding to some of your previous concerns, Old Detroit Burger Bar had the rope lighting on it. I actually brought this to the attention of the DDA at the last DDA meeting, and they were in support of us in enforcing our ordinances and that. I didn't know if they'd have a different opinion. I personally didn't think it was an issue, but everybody agreed it was brighter than everything else in the area. So they have responded to other people in the city, and they should be taking the lights down fairly shortly. Right next door to them, since I was enforcing lights on the Burger Bar, I wanted to inform Black Lotus, take down their Christmas lights. In doing so, in this letter, I found out that we didn't take our lights down off of the clock across the street, and apparently they were taking the lights off the Christmas tree in the library.
Do as I say, not as I do.
I opened up a big can of worms. So,
Do we have a date set that Christmas lighting has to come down?
in the ordinance, it says you can put up holiday. Well, it's not even worded holiday lighting. I think it's called seasonal lighting for up to 7 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, 7 weeks puts it right in the middle of winter, because if you're doing it, putting it up in November or right after Thanksgiving, that puts it in the middle of January, which might be weather.
Well, they can be up. It's just on is a different situation altogether.
Yeah.
Right? So I think a lot of places, they don't have contractors taking the lights down until, first week of April, but the lights are not on.
Yeah.
So the red lights on Detroit Bar can't be for Valentine's Day.
I suppose you could continue that, but that's, then everybody's
And
going to have lights
if
like
you're
that.
looking at lights, you might as well walk the other way on 14 Mile. I believe Kim's has Christmas lights on it, and Leon and Lulu's still have their lights up. I don't know if they're lighting them.
Today I sent out 4 other holiday letters.
Merry Christmas.
Hart and Harlow Hair Salon, Main Street Liquor, Leon and Lulu's, and Del Taco. And I was also informed by the police department there's somebody on South Rochester that I got to go look at and see that the lights are taken down off of their building too. So I'm just enforcing an ordinance, but yeah, I did open up a can of worms, and everybody thinks I'm picking on them. So. Because the city didn't have their lights off yet.
Well, I see the point that apparently the lights on Detroit Burger are against our ordinance, so we're going to take them down. But isn't the tax place on 14 Mile, don't they have rope lighting inside their window? Is that okay to do that, to frame your window with it?
I'll have to look that up. Lighting on the inside is regulated differently than the outside.
Okay.
Which tax place?
The one that has the Statue of Liberty jumping around all
Liberty
day
tax.
up front.
Oh, okay. I was thinking.
People are using these rope lights instead of neon lights, because
Yeah.
neon lights are much more expensive. And I think our ordinance deals with neon lights, so I'll look that up. If it is a violation, then I'll send out those letters.
So it might be a difference if it's on the outside of the building or the inside of the building?
Correct.
Okay.
Also, since I was in that area, Danielle's Trim Hair Salon, how he added the lights. I asked him to reduce the wattage of those lights around the sign. Also, another letter I sent out, I had...
Jim, I'm sorry, just really quickly, I'm sorry not to go back on this one. I am just curious, because when I saw this one, I just happened to be driving down that path that same evening, and what I was just curious about, as we're formally letting them know that they're causing distracted drivers, how are we tracking that? I mean, is it really about the lighting ordinance? Are we tracking some traffic incidents, things that are happening in that regard? I just was curious.
It was my personal experience driving down there going,
It
boy, those
distracted
lights
you?
are distracting. So it was just my observation. Also, the board, at one point in the minutes of one of your previous meetings, you had asked me to schedule a show cause hearing for Church of Clawson. I put together a memo, and John Kingsup is working on our game plan to go forward with that. I'm not sure if we're going to proceed with the show cause at this point or do other stuff. So, sorry about the confusion. I heard at the last meeting I wasn't at that you guys were expecting a show cause in front of you.
It's okay, we got out sooner.
Yeah, record time. Blue Moon Bar and Grill. Had a discussion with the owner of the property at my front counter. And so I clarified the issue and put it in written form, what we're expecting to be done on the property.
During the process of that discussion, do they have any plans, any intentions whatsoever, or was that even conveyed?
Well, during that discussion, no, and the discussion didn't go as cordially as I normally have them, so. Did you want to address
Well, I was just
anything
gonna
that
say,
you
they
had?
never reached the finish line with their last site plan that you approved. Right? You approved it with conditions, they haven't addressed the
It's
conditions.
the second time,
Yeah,
yeah.
so the clock's ticking away on that one, you know.
In the meantime, it's become a nuisance, hasn't it? Have there been any nuisance ordinances for that?
That's what I had listed, all the violations
Okay.
there that I'm going to enforce on it.
So we're giving them roughly 30 days to comply, and
Yeah, and then if they don't comply or if the violations reoccur, I'm going to take further action.
Okay.
So I don't think anybody on this board has a problem with me taking further action on that.
send them another Christmas card.
Yeah. Also, you brought up Western Global on Anderson Court, the exterior container storage. Yep. If you notice in my letter, they had given us, they actually appeared in front of you and submitted a letter saying they were going to comply in 2017. When I spoke to them and gave them the heads up, I was sending them this letter. They have containers stored in Troy and over in Plymouth at the train hub off of 275. So that's a successful business that has to address these issues, and I don't know if they've called Susie yet to schedule the show cause for the March 13th meeting or not.
That is a negative.
Okay. So we should, I'll put them on the agenda for the March 13th meeting, and we'll just send them a copy of the agenda. Hope they appear.
So I looked at that picture online, is that all those white things stacked up and
Yep.
up and up in the parking lot? Is that what
Yeah,
you're talking
fuel
about?
cells or whatever they call those.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's-
there's 5 and 6.
That's what it is, though? That's what we're talking about?
That's- Stuff that didn't get to you guys. Well, I explained the other Christmas light letters that I already sent out, told you where those are going. I inspected the 100 block of South Main, Mr. Mahmood's properties for those box lights out in front, and took a picture of them. They have actually tilted the box lights towards the building, and I talked to Gary from the Laundry Palace. It's not shining on the public right away, and it's not shining on the adjoining residential property. So my interpretation, it's not a violation, and everybody in that complex wants those lights to remain up. And the screening along the back, I also took a picture of the vents for the Laundry Palace, and there is no screening along that wall or that rooftop. So I do have pictures if you want to see them.
What was the date we gave them?
House of Optical, we're talking back and forth and trying to get them moved over to where Discount Fabric was, in between Old Port Inn and the Renshaw Lounge. I heard also today Old Port Inn is having sewer issues again, so. Also, Steve Band's property. Well, John probably had to take care of something else. I resolved the issue with the sign and issued a sign permit. And we got the updated drawings for the site plan, so they have submitted compliant site plans. Mr. Band went out of town. I don't know if he's back yet, but he's supposed to submit a bond that's acceptable to the city attorney. The bond that was set by this board, I believe, was $20,000, and I think he's
10, I think we went, and I think John lowered it.
so they're disputing the cost. So the more he gets done, then the lower the bond could be. So
I'm sorry, who are we talking about there?
when Fantastic Sam's moved
Fantastic Sam, got that one,
Yeah.
okay. Yep.
Quick question on this. Did we give, I know we kept saying he had to do this. Did we say another date for this? Did we give them a deadline again, or was that?
I believe you gave him extra time to research how to put that screening up there.
No, I thought there was a deadline when they were to next submit.
That's what I thought. I'm trying to remember when it was, though.
I recall it being the end of the month, the end of this month.
The end of February or March?
I
End
think
of
it should
February.
probably,
I think
we
you
probably
could make
said
March. Yeah.
I thought, didn't we
Yeah.
set
Only
them?
because it's usually when we say packets are due.
Okay, I'm not just, what I'm trying, wasn't he supposed to come back, though?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
March 13th.
Oh,
And so we do have a
absolutely.
date, it's March 13th.
March 13th.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we did set, so we should expect it,
Yeah, timing,
I
he
will
said
figure
he,
this out.
I just wondered, I
I had that
He was-
same
thought we
question.
had, okay.
He was to submit by March 13th, Glenn?
No, our review was postponed until March 13th.
yeah.
Right, so it should have been here.
By now, right? Because he's got 2 weeks in
That's why
the.
I'm asking, I
Rafael
thought we were
called
supposed to
me.
look at it at this meeting, so we were, okay,
I talked to his architect
okay.
solid 2 weeks ago, maybe more.
When was he here, January?
January 23rd.
Thank you.
Rafael called me and asked me what the city put on for its rooftop screening, and basically it's metal barn siding that we got from Menards and the mounting system. So
Painted to match, though, right?
it matches the chocolate brown of the building. So he would just get something in a gray tone if he went with that type of screening.
Well, gray tone being painted, and not whatever the metal would come in, right?
Well, that's the barn siding comes pre-painted.
It does come pre-painted.
Yeah, that's what I bought. What's on the roof here, screening our rooftop units, was bought with that color.
Oh, okay, I see. All right, okay. I'm just thinking it's just galvanized steel up there and they're calling it gray.
Oh, yeah, because we said we didn't like that idea either.
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if it's, I'm not
Done
gonna,
right.
let's review it.
And good and bad news, El Guanaco, I keep mispronouncing it, has closed down and moved out of Clawson and stayed with their Troy location. And we have the Salt and Sugar Company, natural and organic local delivery servicing Michigan since 2014, is moving into that space. The sign that he had hanging out front is gone. And she wants to put her 24 square foot sign on the south side, or no, on the west side, that faces Collision Concepts, because we have 2 trees out front, and it's such a small space out front that a 24 square foot sign actually looks big on the front of that building. So I have the authority to approve it. I thought I'd bounce it off the board. It's a circular logo,
You pass it in, please.
and I will pass it down so people can see it.
What'd you say they are again?
What would the company do called Sugar and Spice?
They're a catering
Catering company.
They're a catering company. They
Catering
do all organic, natural foods. They've kind of bounced around. This will be their third location. She wants to find one. She wants this to be home. They do have a food truck that they kind of use as more of like their delivery truck, and then they park it at, they've parked it at other events, but yeah.
So it's not
predominantly catering. Is
Catering.
what they're
You're not
doing.
going to walk in and get food. You're just going to.
They will have like a little deli type of counter, but I mean
okay.
their business is primarily the catering
So
side
like
of
a
it.
little bakery kind of counter?
Yeah. I think it'll be pretty yummy.
Yeah, like I need more yummy.
I need more yummy. I love it.
Everybody needs more
Wait,
yummy.
This is on TV. I don't need to hear that.
Everybody.
And this is painted?
Yes. I believe that's her intent, right?
Yeah, I don't know if we want to paint a wall, though, because it is a block building. I don't know if we want to have a flat. I believe we used to want them on the a mounting board, whether it's circular or square, and then that logo just mounted on the wall.
Problem?
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, as far as, my thought was that it'd be painted, if it's that, right? But if this is going to be, right, not backlit, it's not protruding, or,
You know that storage area where Collision Experts
Yeah.
has? It'd be on that wall that faces that
it would be
storage
looking
area.
over their fence, right? You'd have to see it
Yeah.
if you're, okay.
So you would have to be eastbound on
Yeah.
14 Mile to see it.
Cool.
Yeah.
But if you look at the front of that building,
There's no room in the front.
Yeah,
I mean,
'cause
he
we
had to
got
hang
two-
that sign down off of the, it would look pretty precarious to begin with.
so,
Right.
Right.
All right.
and she's not using the rear entrance. So in the city center, you get 12 square foot in the back and 24 in the front. And I have allowed it on the sides, and she just wants to reverse it because of her unique situation. So I didn't see a problem with it, and she promised not to store the food truck there, but it will be there to pick up baked goods and stuff in the morning and go out on its whatever runs it does for the day.
Where
For the
will the
weekends.
food truck be stored?
Her home.
Okay.
It's
Her
like an
home and-
Airstream, right? So
Okay.
it's not. I've spoken to her as well, and she's she's not very convinced
we've
of
had
the
a couple-
security of the overall trailer itself.
Yeah, we've
so-
had a couple of instances of, parking locations being relatively creative as far as these types of businesses.
Oh, and we had that conversation. No worries.
All right. Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Susie, you got good news to bring up?
Well, I'm going to go back to our previous question real quick. Mahmoud is required to submit by the 1st.
Okay.
So I believe we told him noon on the 1st because it's packet day.
So we should be seeing something on the 13th,
That is the plan.
a site plan,
Yes.
which,
Yes, you should be you should be seeing another site plan that addresses all of the concerns that we've brought up.
but we shouldn't be expecting to see actual stuff up there yet, just the site plan.
Just a plan.
Just the plan.
Don't want to get carried away.
I can appreciate that. Some good news is, speaking of plans and buildings and businesses, Haberman's is like going gangbusters on the inside. And they are also planning to be here on the 13th to ask for TCO. They are, oh man, she's chomping at the bit. So,
Yeah, she can't make money if she's not selling fabric.
Exactly. She's got plenty of orders that are waiting to be delivered, and no space to put them, right? And lots of seamstresses just chomping at the bit. So they're going to be opening or coming before us on the 13th to ask for a TCO. I would like to know what you guys think about the electronic packets. Yes, no.
Well, it's hard to-
Give it another shot, maybe
Thinking
all
about what?
condensed into one email.
Electronic
I'm fine
packet.
with it.
email.
One email.
would be
Yeah.
better.
PDF would be nice.
Yes.
A PDF, okay.
Like one.
I thought I received an accident, is what it was.
It was not as coordinated as we originally intended that to be, but the overall electronic scheme? Is this
Good.
good for
Okay.
everyone? Is there anyone that would prefer
I would-
a hard copy of the packet?
I'm glad that there was one here waiting, because I
kinda
would have hated
have.
to print it off, but I was fine with it.
Okay, so.
This should be a transition period.
I prefer a hard copy on it, and I assume someone here at the city is looking, after our joint meeting, are we not going to be issued separate emails? So
We
that
will.
this will
I
be
talked to
city
Mike about
business on our
that
own?
today. And I think he mentioned it
He
at one of our
mentioned it.
other
He gave us a
meetings.
date. He said at the end of the fiscal year.
Yep, at the start, yes.
Yeah.
End of the old, beginning of the new fiscal year, we'll all get, you will all join us in getting Clawson emails. And so what we'll do then is we will upload all of the packets to Google Drive.
Good.
Don't worry, we will give a tutorial on how this is all going to work
Yeah.
for those of you that may be nervous. But so we'll do that, and then, yeah, I mean, if you prefer that we just have hard copies up here available for the meeting, or would you rather have them mailed to you? Just let us know
I prefer a hard copy here to follow during the meeting.
during the meeting.
I find it
Okay.
easier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I appreciate
I
that.
do too.
Okay.
And then just because I'd like to, some of my concern is just when I get a lot of email.
Right.
And that I could, skip past it and not realize that we've gotten it.
Okay.
And as far as, and I think, as a transition into the city email, that I may be more attuned to getting just electronic copy.
Okay. And maybe I talked to Glenn about this before the meeting, but maybe we, I set up a meeting invite, if you will, and that way give you guys your alert for don't forget, So I don't know.
Do you know, Susie, if the packets are public information anyway, can they just be put on the website rather than having to use the whole Google Drive thing? Can it just be a link on the website, city's website, or no?
I mean, they
have
are,
had
but
this-
not until after, right?
I've had this conversation with, I actually had this conversation with our previous clerk. They use Granicus. Perhaps Cheryl can actually tell us a little bit more about it. My understanding is that it's a little bit more complicated than just, upload
It
and
always
go,
is.
right? So I can certainly ask him if we can do.
I'm just curious. That's what we do at the county. All of our packets are loaded
Right.
the Thursday before, and then the commissioners just go online and download the PDF.
I mean, it seems like an easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will ask again because it's been a while, right? So.
Could be some legalese, right?
Well, they have the
No.
packets on the city council. They have the full packets for,
Right.
Right, and
What's
but
the
I know that the way they've, it's like a matter of like how you upload the documents into it, who's got access to that program, and
go online
Right.
and click, and you get it, and you can hit download and get the whole packet on your computer. I mean,
but
are you
it's
talking
it's
about?
this specific program that they use for the council packet. So,
So you're
I'll
saying you're
ask.
not sure that program applies to our council, our planning commission?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that whole program works, but I'll ask. I'll figure it out.
I
So
mean, it would be easier than you having to email a bunch of people too. If we just,
that is true. That is
Because
true.
the PDFs of blueprints and stuff take up a lot of space, and a lot of your computers might assume it's a virus because it takes up so much space.
And there's the two different types of paper when you're printing. And
Yeah. Well, I'm just from experience.
I'm like the Luddite up here, I think, probably.
I've sent things, blueprints, like, why didn't you get it? It's because my computer wouldn't let them open it, so.
You default to A4 too, right? Okay, just making sure.
Exactly.
Of course, we always got, ta-da,
are you getting, I was gonna say, what are you doing?
thumb drive. It's a family show. This is a family show.
Okay.
Haberman Fabrics has been a wonderful PR for this city, us keeping them open. I got people weekly asking about it almost daily, so it's.
Are they out of their royal, or?
Oh yeah,
That's right.
that's been closed since actually before the holidays.
Okay.
So yeah, everyone's eager. So she's extremely enthusiastic about everything that that's been happening with us here. She's thrilled. So.
Okay.
Oh, we do have our reminder. I know I've already told you guys. If you can make it, there is the Noble Appliance ribbon cutting on Monday at 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
So
Yeah.
be there if you can.
Yeah, I've got that on my calendar. I was going to ask Jim, I don't recall when we approved everything. Everything looks good to me out there except for their parking lot. I mean, there's those 2 lights, pole lights that are those going to stay? I can't recall if we,
I was thinking of something else when she brought it up. What property are we talking about?
Noble.
I'm not sure if it's on Noble or it's on Haberman's, but there's pole lights out front.
I'll have to check the plans. I believe they are on the Haberman's Fabrics property.
Okay, so we haven't looked into that yet. I know there was a pole sign there at one point, and that's been taken down. That's all taken care of.
Correct.
And then this afternoon, Zorba started taking their sign down. They took
Yes.
They took the signage off the front of the building, and they took half the...
Did you get to watch those guys? They had a van, and then
Yeah.
they put the ladders on top of the van, to reach the sign. And it's just like, they just weren't prepared to take down a sign that size. So
Yeah.
Safety first.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We do have a capital improvements program training that Oakland County is putting on with the Michigan Association of Planning. That's Thursday, March 15th from 8 to 11. If you can be there, fantastic. Let me know. There is, I think it's $25. So if that's something that you want to attend, let me know by Thursday. And
Have you sent us an email regarding that?
I've sent you a couple emails about that one.
Yeah,
Yep. So
I'll vouch for that.
thank you.
I'll be able-
Thank you.
I will not be telling you yes.
You know, no. So, and I think that's pretty much all that I have at the moment.
Okay. Anything else?
Actually, I have a question. Can we go back, way back for a minute? Sorry, don't. Okay, good. So this whole bond thing keeps coming up every time.
Uh-huh.
And we always say to the city specs, and he wasn't the first person, I don't think, that's asked, what does that mean? Do we have like a draft form, or do we have a model, or, a template or something that gives them the right idea?
No, we do not.
So how do we suggest that happen?
Oh, I think it would be great if you would be suggesting that right now.
Suggesting that right now.
I mean, I think it would be helpful. The language that we have is that it's always to the, now I'm going to brain dump exactly how he says it, but, in a manner that is acceptable to the city attorney.
But what would that manner be? Because it seems like that would be easier to hand, we don't hand them something
We
that
don't.
says.
Have a form of bond like that, and we do not. And,
Well, by gosh, can we get one of
then
those?
what happens is, so that in this case, traffic, they approach your insurance company, they say, we need a performance bond, because we're going to request a TCO, and then the insurance company calls us and says, where's your bond form? Have one.
Let's do that.
So what do you give them? I mean, if they ask for it,
Do we
you
need
got
a
to submit
motion
something,
then,
right?
or-
City attorney's phone number.
And say, discuss it with the city attorney, and
I mean, that does, because
I
we've
mean,
gone
they
to
had
that
that
training.
conversation,
We've
right?
gone to some of that training where this is all we're supposed to make this easy on people, the
Yes.
one stop. And I mean, what's the point of us going to training and listening to these best practices if we do not implement them? And that's one of the things I think. Was
were
it
you
best
reading
practice?
my mind earlier this week? Because I had that same thought. that
However,
this
maybe
would
we're just
streamline
equally
things.
brilliant.
It's,
Anyways, do we need to make a motion for that, or is that something, how do we
it's
suggest
in,
that?
I'm not sure what you're looking for. It's in our list of ordinances, though. It's 34-519, performance guarantees, and it pretty much spells out.
But this is like a form, as in like an application type of form.
A form already, like fill in the blanks, right? These are the site improvements that need to be completed. This is the date, this is the amount, and everything else is already set.
It's just good customer
and
service.
Remember what you're looking at there, Greg.
It doesn't
that's gonna be-
change,
the
right?
release is gonna be-
Right.
And she's
it's
talking
a
about
performance
user
bond,
friendly.
She wants an
right?
easier form.
Yes.
In the
Okay.
law, we have like form books that have these.
Oh, yeah, we
in
use them all the
but
time in my job, too. I mean, yeah, I get it.
But they could be any, I mean,
That's a knowable thing, right?
what the form of the bond is, it could be a couple different variations, right?
There can be, but, and so there are other means of security besides bond, right? As city attorney pointed out, a lot of times folks bring in cash. Now, of course, the problem with that is that that's the very cash that you need to do the work. So, that unless you have 2 times as much cash as you need to do the work, then that becomes problematic. Same thing with a letter of credit, which is the other typical form of guarantee, then you are bringing the money in, but the bank is segregating it in your account so that it can't be used until it's released. So the third option is the one that you choose if you aren't rolling in dough, and that's a performance bond. And so,
Okay, so besides cash, what is the city's preference?
so it goes in that order that I just discussed.
Okay.
Most places would say it goes in that order. Cash, if you can't do cash, letter of credit, because then the money is there. And finally, everyone accepts a performance bond. And, the performance bond is the least desirable because then you got to fight with the insurance company to get the money to do the work if it doesn't get done. But pretty much every place accepts that for the reason that I said, that you can't penalize people by requiring them to have double as much money as they need to do the work.
Is a performance bond and a surety bond two different things?
They are different, yeah. What you're asking for is basically a performance bond.
We've always used the terminology surety bond in the past, though.
Again, maybe that's why we should have a nice template form to make that clear.
Well, exactly. And, a lot of times the term performance bond is applied to contract, we had this, so we just went through this with 157 North Rochester, who came up with some sort of a bond. I don't know, it's a hybrid of some kind, but, the first thing they tried to do was give us their own form of performance bond, which wasn't correct for this purpose, right? Many times the term performance bond is applied to a contractor who's doing public job, and they have to give a performance bond to the municipal corporation to guarantee that they're going to do the job that you hired them to do, or else someone will come in and make good on that. So that's why I think the term surety bond also gets applied to it, because the insurance company is stepping in and ensuring that this will get done. But I think to some degree it's a hybrid that kind of thing, but it's typical in every municipality. Everybody has this requirement for occupying before the site improvements are done, and whatever you call it, it's a form that it specifies those things that are to be done. The insurer is bound to the municipal corporation to guarantee that those things will be done, and there's a time frame and there's an amount, and that's kind of it.
Do other cities have this standardized
Pretty
form?
much, well, many do, yes.
Well, then why can't we get an electronic copy, and that way if somebody applies, have the different categoricals there? Just being the modern technical age, we could just say, okay, here, we want
Well, it's not really in our purview to approve that, right? And so we
Well, this is just the application part. I mean, if they're looking for a surety bond, okay, here's the form for it, fill it out and bring it in, signed, sealed, delivered.
Yeah, as I say, it's not, we're not the lawyers here.
Right.
I'm not here as a lawyer.
No, but someone else is, there is a lawyer that works here that generally knows what they want in these things, because we keep saying, but however the city approves it, so it seems to me like it shouldn't be too hard to put together a general template that gives them an idea of what they might need to do, or however, and it's part of their packet when you're working with them for their site plan and their approval and all the stuff that we do with them. I mean, we'll, go to training. That's what the training best practices.
Well, just like all manufacturers and everything like that, they have their inspection sheets, standardized forms. You need this form? There you go.
There might be some variables on there, but that's okay. There's, forms that allow for variables. So be nice to do
You could
that.
certainly request that.
There's always a space, comments.
There you go. Other. So how, do we need to take any action to request that, or formal, or is it in
Direct
notes now
administration
and we'll
to
do it?
supply us with a form.
So what do we?
Does it need to be seconded and that type of thing? I think that's what you're asking.
Sure.
Okay.
Back to Jim with code enforcement here. If we're going after Blue Moon, giving them a list of 12 items that they have to take care of, and the church on Clawson with a list of items they have to take care of, is there anything we can do with Atomic Chicken here? Or are we just going to sit and watch that?
Wait, I'm sorry. Didn't we just say we had to make a motion? No?
Yeah.
Well, if
Yeah.
you want to, I mean, I think that's appropriate if you want to.
To get a form made?
That's what you want.
Yeah, I'm saying I would like to, I mean, if that's what we need to
Yeah,
do to
no,
make
that
sure it
it's in the
officially
minutes
hits
and
a
so on.
desk.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, it might be like some of the other things we talk about, such as, oh, let's talk about snout housing, that's never came back up, which, by the way, I'm about to bring back up, just did. You know, it never comes back up, so if we don't do something formal, it doesn't seem like anything ever happens, so I guess I would kind of like to
Okay,
make a motion to
would you like to
say,
make a motion to
can
make
we
a
have
form?
can we make that happen?
What's your timeline?
You're the motion man.
Yeah.
You got it, second.
I don't know, what's a reasonable timeline? I'm not trying to.
Nice job,
force
Buzz.
I
What do you
did,
say?
your next meeting is busy, you've got the public hearing for the master
Yeah,
plan.
I'm not in a rush, hurry, but.
So,
27th is the, March 27th is the meeting after that. I mean,
Yeah, I
it
can-
Is that enough
seems
time?
reasonable.
Is that
to-
reasonable? I mean, people have workloads. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but, you know, is that a reasonable?
I mean, I'm not
keeps coming
envisioning
up.
this to, when it keeps coming up.
It does keep coming up.
I don't imagine it's gonna be a, multiple page form. Like, I
How about
envision
just
this to be a
probably not-
one-pager.
Sorry, the rallies were probably not going to get it, I would assume probably not a complete thing by a certain date. Can we make a motion and recommendation around, like, a motion around receiving recommendations for how to go about implementing a form? I mean, does that seem like more
Or
reasonable?
can we
in
ask
some
for
way?
a draft
Yeah, we just asked them
I
for a
would say
form.
ask for a draft.
think
Ask
it'd
for
be
a
a bad
draft.
idea.
Okay, so
by March
review,
22nd?
Or
27.
27th.
27th,
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, I think that would be reasonable.
That sounds good.
I mean, because we know what methods are acceptable, right? We just don't have a form that can be used as a template for people going forward.
review of an outline and a process of a form for
I-
obtaining.
I think you've got too many words in there, my friend.
Okay.
I really think it
Get
should
us
just
something by
be
March
a
27th.
draft, a draft of a form that
Well,
can
I'm
be
just what I'm
provided.
saying, as far
Template
as-
for a
but-
performance bond.
Right, but I mean, as far as, you have to understand as far as, okay, what are we gonna look at, and what's the process that somebody's gonna follow through on this, right?
I would assume that the process is part and parcel of that form because
Okay.
you need to understand as you're going through the
Yes.
form
Yep.
what the heck you're supposed to be doing and why you're doing it. So I would expect that would be in there.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure that's laid out as far as, okay, if we're going to have a forum, that people clearly understand as far as what they need to do, right? Because if we just have a forum and people scratch their
Form.
heads like, okay, what's
So-
next?
And instructions.
Yeah, requirements, instructions and requirements in a
Contained
performance
within a
bond.
form. Contained within the.
Contained within the form
the
for a
template
performance bond that can be shared with.
And I don't know if you even want to specify performance bond, if you would just want to say
Bond.
bond,
Bond,
right?
okay.
Because you
Sorry,
don't
he
have
went
to
through the whole
really-
difference between, so I didn't want to.
Yes, bond requirements.
Okay, you want to
Okay.
clean up that motion a little bit?
Yes, we're perpetually
A
cleaning.
draft copy of a performance bond
No bond.
application.
We want a draft copy of a instructions and
Bond requirements.
bond requirements by March 27th to review.
Second.
Please.
And instructions, right?
That's part of it.
Motion, support, roll call, please.
Clear as mud.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prowse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Sure.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes. Then if I might go back to Jim, we're going after Blue Moon to get them to move and do something, and the same thing with the church on Clawson. Is there anything we can do with Atomic Chicken, or are we just going to sit and watch this building sit there vacant? Is there any way we can?
I will research it for
Oh.
your next meeting and research it and see if I can put a blight notice
Well, I
together.
thought we
for
had a
it.
business coming in there.
Yeah,
I thought
didn't you
that
say,
taco
Susie, we had
place was
somebody
coming in there.
interested?
You
No,
know,
no.
we had,
We
it was
entered into a
too
development
loose. It was
agreement.
too loose
They
of a
mentioned
thing.
a couple of things, but it's all dropped. You know, it's-
There was going to be a Mexican Tex fusion that was going to be coming in, and they needed to get their parking lot fixed before they could open. That was It's been the requirement for a long time. And their concrete contractor basically came in and said, yeah, my guys are all hunting, sorry.
So
Nothing happened, so they couldn't, fulfill that requirement, and that was literally like right before Thanksgiving. So I expect that we'll see them come in again and be like, hey, so guys,
I'd like to find
I got this
somebody
new plan,
encourage them to do something, because as is now, if the weeds grow too high, the city will mow it and we put it on their taxes. But they can just basically leave that thing vacant.
Yeah, I believe I have to follow up with a blight notice and keep the site plan separate.
Yeah.
Just say, if you don't maintain the blight, we're going to maintain it for you.
Right.
Let's
And
keep
bill
that
you.
blight in good shape.
So who owns that building?
well, it's a land contract, actually.
So that guy Scott that owns partial ownership, he has that under land contract right now?
That he has that under land contract, and it's under, as far as I know, that contract, he's still in good standing with that contract. He believes the chicken to actually be cursed, but I don't think he's ready to give up on that space.
I just like to see them motivated somehow. I hate to see the building just vacant.
Because it looks just terrible.
Well, he's not the only one we'd like to see motivated.
Oh, true, yeah.
I mean, we've worked with them. I mean, we entered into a development agreement and gave them the option to fix that parking lot and get running through this winter, and they didn't even do that. So this is less of the carrot and this is more of the stick approach.
That was, I mean, if you believe what they say, the development agreement, after it was blessed, got signed like a week too late for them to get their they had a contractor lined up, and by the time the development agreement was negotiated, it was too late, and all their guys had gone hunting and asphalt plants were closed. So, as Susie says, I assume they'll come back in the spring with something else. It may not be that exact thing. But it's different than Church of Clawson in the sense that Church of Clawson is occupied.
Right.
It is similar to Blue Moon. And, they don't have an approved, well, Blue Moon has a conditionally approved plan right now, but it's going to expire. But Atomic Chicken has no site plan. It's just a vacant building, no different than some others we have on Main Street as well that, just have to be approached, as Jim said, from a blight standpoint, where there's blight. I know the city, they weren't shoveling their sidewalk, for example, and the city went after them on that account, and I think did the work and built the property owner to that work.
After years, you get used to looking at the eyesores. I'd like to find some way to...
No, and you bring up a great point. But again, as far as, there's other folks who like to see get motivated, and it goes back to, you were mentioning other locations on Main Street. One that comes to mind is at Charlevoix in Maine, right? There's a wall that's been knocked down. And I'm like, okay, well, what's happening with that? I'd love to see that be fixed. Right, because whether or not it's somebody's parking an inappropriate van there, who may have knocked it down. I don't know.
Where's that? Where you talking? Charlevoix in Maine?
Payroll.
400 South Main.
That's McLeod's building, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's another one. We talked about that 3 years ago, and
we talked about it like 3 weeks ago, man.
Yeah. So why is nothing ever done about it? Why has he never been required to make that building look presentable?
He has been telling us recently that he is focused on the Laundry Palace Plaza before he is going to shift his focus once again to 400 South Main.
But he owns multiple buildings. He can only focus on one building at a time. I mean, that's not really a good business plan. It is a little frustrating because we have a lot of really nice buildings there, and I'm sure Evolve and the place across the street really don't appreciate what that building looks like when they put so much time and energy into that.
I concur.
And money.
What's that? It's not fair to the other business.
No, it isn't exactly. Not fair whatsoever.
I concur.
Okay. What about the castle? I mean, anything going on with the owners of that, and other than late night digging and
he's
the bump shop.
He's been told what he needs to provide to the city on numerous occasions. We've requested that we need a structural engineer to certify that the building is actually structurally sound at this point, since he has disturbed the soil to such an extent. We've said we need a report, the same report that he is going to provide to the MDEQ, telling us what contaminants are there, what is his plan for remediation. Don't forget, you got to go, and those are the first two requirements before site plan approval can even be pursued, because we can't adequately review a plan if we don't have those two pieces of information. He comes back to us every so often with, hey, I've got this great new use. What can I do to get them in? And he is referred back to those same emails. I mean, I've sent him the exact same email at least a half a dozen times. So, nothing.
Okay.
Is the short answer. Nothing.
So there were tanks in that location?
Correct.
Okay. So just something came to mind. Are there any other properties that are vacant within the city that may have tanks? In a similar situation where somebody may say, okay, I'm going to start digging these out.
I mean, it's entirely feasible. Most places, most cities had gas stations on every other corner. Odds are probably pretty high that there's a tank or two laying around buried that we don't know about, or maybe we do know about. I mean, we don't have an inventory of those properties. It's a pretty big task. I did actually get contacted a few weeks ago by the MDEQ asking if there were any priority sites. So I've given them a few of our priority sites. We'll see what transpires with that. I mean, it could just very well go on a list.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It just occurred to me that they may not be the only location. But you're right, because that's the exact same thing that I thought. It's like there were probably gas stations and locations, years and years ago that we've all forgotten. Maybe you remember.
I remember.
Through the years, there's been tanks removed.
Most of them haven't cleaned up over the
I
years.
read a lot of books on them.
Behind A1 transmission, there was a tank removed on the other side of the alley behind them. Pizza Hut, there was a tank underneath their parking lot that was removed 2 years ago.
Okay.
So when they are identified, people have taken care of them.
Where the medical
Unfortunately,
office,
this gentleman has taken a different route than
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And that's
Where
my
the
concern,
medical,
right? So,
where the medical office is, just south of the bank, or north of the bank, that was a pure gas station.
Yeah, those tanks were removed years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if Jim just keeps sending out his Christmas cards to everybody and blight orders or whatever you want to put on them.
I do have one more. I do have a positive thing to tell you guys, by the way. I don't know how it slipped my mind. 1330 North Crooks, you had a presentation by Mike Savoy and his entourage. They now have the property under contract. So expect to see site plans coming to you, I would say within the next month or two. We're going to be meeting with them to kind of finalize their package before submitted to us for review and pass it on to you guys.
And will we see the container housing people in front of us again, possibly?
Maybe not incredibly soon. Council did, we provided them with a report last Tuesday, and Greg and I discussed it with council. There wasn't a lot of. They were fairly neutral in their assessment of it, with the same concerns of parking, right? I mean, that's going to be the biggie. So, I've relayed this to the gentlemen that are involved with the container housing project, and asked them to be proactive in finding a creative solution to their parking problem. Whether it be looking for other lots to, create parking, reducing the number of units, explore all options available to you. So they're gonna.
But it's because it's the first PUD done here in town, it's going to be it's quite a hoop to jump through for them.
It's a bit of a hoop to jump through, yeah. And I think they're gonna assess their options, right? I mean, they would. obviously like to move forward with the container housing project. But they're open to selling it to another developer that would that would demolish that property and build a commercial use, which is perfectly acceptable by ordinance right now. So
Right.
I would prefer that they do something more along the lines of housing, but I think it would be a good asset for the city. But that's right now the ball's in their court to decide whether or not they want to roll the dice.
Going back to Savoy, did they decide as far as the option for the retention pond?
We will find out on Thursday in our discussion. We haven't seen the plans yet, right? I mean, this is just their last kind of pre-app meeting before they submit their plans, so they know they have all their ducks in a row.
Yeah, because I mean, that concerns me from an environmental perspective and what the County Drain Commission may have input on neighbor impact and things like that.
Right.
So that's a big project.
Just my sense from the conversations that we've had with their architect, I mean, I think they're leaning more towards the closed system or a hybrid system.
Okay.
I didn't get the impression that they were really on board with doing a fully open system, but
Okay.
we'll see. We'll see.
Prepared to discuss what's the benefits or as far as, so that I'll do homework, but as far as there's an extent as far as what I'll be able to learn on my own, and then I help decide whether or not that's the best way.
We will make sure that they know that they need to explain why they went with the option they went with, and pros and cons to it.
And
right?
are there any other examples within the city that may have something similar to that, like behind Advanced Auto Parts or over by?
Jim, I don't know.
We do have a detention pond, or did I use the wrong term? Either retention or detention pond. It used to be Ark and Jonah's property, and that's been maintained through the years. So we do have that.
The one that's behind Social Security Administration, right?
There is still one behind a property that's up on North Crooks. Used to be an industrial building, and now they store trucks or they build the displays for the auto shows.
Oh, okay.
That's still there. That's a little gravel one. It's fairly shallow.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
And there is a drainage ditch right on that property that I don't believe is active anymore.
No, that was the whole
unless
thing, as far as
goes
where
across
it
the
was
street.
going to drain and what they were going to have to do.
Right.
Okay, just something to think about.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I would kind of like to ask about the follow-up on, we talked about it, it was a thing, so the whole city, because I know, I was just talking to a gentleman the other day, and he was talking about how the house he grew up in is torn down, and they're getting ready to put something up in its place, and my ears went, oh, gee, I wonder if it's going to be something that we wouldn't want putting up in its place. So are we, what's the...
So that was something that we were going to bring to you guys. That was part of our idea for the joint meeting. I suppose that we can still go back and do it. I mean, we'd purposely delayed presenting it to the Planning Commission because we knew that we were going to need input from council and ZBA. And, why continue to present the same thing over and over in different forms when we can present it all at once? So,
Since we can't now.
But since we can't now, I guess that means that we can bring it to you guys and start working on that and present to you what we were planning on presenting to you before.
How is the building permits? Have you seen more recently, or?
Our revenue on building permits has climbed steadily over the last
3 years, Jim. Just say 3 years.
3 years. Yeah, they're compliant, actually increasing pretty steadily.
Okay.
So, yeah, the large lot ordinance has stopped new house construction to 1 to 2 a year. But we have a lot of people that are remodeling their existing homes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And our vacant homes, the worst when the recession was around, was about 60, and now we're in the teens, so we're below 20. So
That's
Yeah, they're
fantastic.
moving fast. It was interesting, I watched the DDA meeting on video on demand. You were at that meeting, and when they discussed the signage over here by, we had the problem with the signs, putting them back up. The guy redid his building, and now it's up to the business owners to put their signs up. The DDA, it sounded like their general thought was let them put their original old signs back up, and we'll live with that until they change ownership.
Yeah, the wording of the ordinance says architecturally compatible, and it was the DDA's intention not to punish the existing businesses, to let them put their existing signs up, which I don't know.
Even the
if that-
cafe. Even the cafes.
He's not going to, I understand.
Well, that was their recommending body, and that's what was discussed at the meeting. And I made it clear at the meeting, I don't know if you heard it or not,
Yeah.
that they're recommending body on that, and it's actually the planning commission's decision.
Right, they're the ones who commissioned the new ordinance that requires
started the problem.
that you review these signs. But I think they're looking at the city as being the bad guy, and in the two there is no requirement that if you do nothing, you take your sign, you have to bring your sign into compliance, right? I mean, everybody can keep their sign as long as they don't take it down. And so the two circumstances that they're talking about are, in the one case, the property owner who came and wanted to change the facade of their building, and then required their tenants to take their signs down. And then kind of wanted to make the city look like the bad guy when they couldn't put them back up the same way they were before they took them down. The other one is a property owner who let the front of his building fall off. And by virtue of that, the signs all came down, and now wants to make the city the bad guy because those very same signs, including the one that made the front of the building fall off, can't go back up. So I don't know that it's the city needs to feel bad for, at that point, requiring compliance with the ordinances as they're written today. It's not like we're going up and down, the various streets of the downtown saying, nope, time's up, you got to take your sign down. Everybody can, as far as wall signs are concerned, they can keep their signs as long as they want to keep them.
Right.
But if you take a non-conforming sign down, a conforming sign has to go back up.
They should be upset with the building owner, not with our ordinances.
And by the way, that is a negotiation between the tenant and the landlord at the point where the landlord has compelled you to take your sign down, and now you can't put that same sign back up.
Yep.
And I don't think we have a role in that.
No.
And somebody said, oh, but no, the cafe isn't putting theirs back up. But if they let the others put them up, that cafeteria could easily put it back up, though, couldn't they? I mean,
The cafe is not coming back.
They're
The
not,
cafe is not coming back.
meaning they're closing?
Their lease has not been renewed.
Oh, good.
Yeah, one less sign.
But otherwise, they could put their sign back up under that theory, as you point out.
Wait, did you just say the cafe's not coming back?
That's a good thing. I went in there the other day, and it was. I hadn't been in there in 6 years, and I walked in the day, and it was so. They just stared at you. It was like out of a movie. I felt like it was a joke or something. It was terrible. So that's interesting.
Okay.
What'd you go in there for?
Because I just want to
Coffee?
see, what can you be doing here? Because I remember last time, when the building owner came through and he said how Noble Fish is upset that he's letting people smoke in there and stuff, and they can smell in their building. And I just wanted to see, what.
That's why I walked out. I walked
here?
in, smelled the smoke, and walked right back out. It took me 2 seconds
But it's
to go,
not a
okay,
business.
free
It's not
feet,
even
smoky. Bye.
There was nothing I could have consumed or purchased there.
Oh, it's run more as a club than it is.
Yeah, it's crazy. And if you
But
guys
it
hear
has
this,
to be a
I'm just
club to
kidding.
allow smoking in it.
Okay, if there's,
Smoking is not allowed in it.
Really? Because they all had cigarettes when I was in there.
Well, it happens in it, it's not allowed in it.
Doesn't mean it's.
It's a concern anymore.
Yes.
Yes,
Good
good.
to hear.
I-
That's
yeah,
very
never
encouraging.
mind.
Because it's a great location, and I'm sure some great business will end up in there now.
Yes, I concur.
Okay.
okay, if there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Look at him, he's looking at me like,
I'll make a motion to
Anything
adjourn.
else? No, I guess.
Quick, somebody second.
Second.
I got a motion, and I got support. Roll call, please.
Ms. Prowse.
Yes.
Ms. Scripture.
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd.
Yes.
Mr. Watson.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson. Mr. Kucera.
Yes.
Mr. McHale.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.